Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to the Reptile Barn. I have a quick video here, and I'm filming a bunch of much longer ones too. I was reading something fascinating about something not reptile related, and I just thought this is so relevant still to reptiles. I want to talk about it a little bit on my vlog. So, any of you who read fantasy have heard of Brandon Sanderson, guaranteed. Many of you who haven't read a lot of fantasy have still heard of Brandon Sanderson. He's the most popular author writing fantasy today. Everything he puts out is a bestseller. He's just a monster. He super prolific, writes like crazy. By all accounts, he's an excellent author. He teaches how to write books at a university. He's just a really big deal in the world of fantasy books right now, which many of you probably aren't into, but many of you probably are. He did an interview recently, and he said something absolutely fascinating. He wrote his first book. It did pretty well. You know, his first book that got published, and it did pretty well. And his publisher wanted a sequel immediately. That's what you do. That's kind of the standard. And he said, no, I have this other series that I want to start. I'm so stoked for it. You're going to love it. It'll sell. Don't worry. Let's do it this way. And his publisher was very skeptical, but let him do it. And they put out this first book in the new series, which today, you know, many years later, is one of the most popular series of fantasy ever written. Humongous success. But when he first put it out, it bombed. It did terrible. And he thought his career might be over as a writer. Honestly, it did that badly. And his publisher was like, I told you, man, like, what are you doing? But he knew, and his publisher knew, and his editor knew, and everybody who actually read it knew this book is way better than my first book. This new series is way better than anything I could have done with a sequel to my first book. Way better. You know, he had been through the whole process of edits and rewrites and all this. He was just a more accomplished writer after his first book published, and he did a way better job on the second one. He's like, well, it's just not selling though, at all. Like, really bad. And he'd already written the sequel to this new series and was like, it's not going to sell. And the publisher was only ordering like a small number of them because they were already anticipating it wasn't going to sell well. He's panicking, semi in his brain, kind of planning a new career, right? And then he kind of realizes the cover, just the cover art on the book, on the paperback especially, isn't compelling. People are seeing it in the store and being like, nah, I'll pick something else. And so he, and I think his editor, him and someone else involved in the team, go to the publisher and are like, we need a new cover and let's drop the price slightly. Just a small price drop to catch people's eye and a brand new cover, and let's see what happens. And the publisher's like, I mean, maybe that'll boost us a tiny bit, but come on. He's like, just give me one more chance here. So they get an illustrator, they get a new cover, completely different cover concept. They drop the price slightly for the paperback, and sales skyrocket. I mean, skyrocket. So the publisher releases the sequel, it sells out. They immediately order a second printing. The third one in the series, bestseller. And ever since then, he's been a titan of the industry and never looked back. Everything he touches turns to gold. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, man, I have heard breeders talking about trying to make sales, and they're like, look, guys, the price point is important. People are going to be comparing prices and deciding if it's valuable enough for that price or not. You know, the animal they're looking at, do they want it enough? Is it spectacular enough? Whatever the case may be, is it rare enough? But take good pictures. Just take good pictures. Take great pictures. Take spectacular pictures. And it will make a huge difference. And a ton of breeders, especially new breeders trying to break in, don't listen. They start a YouTube channel, right? Which is great. Nothing wrong with that. They really hit Instagram hard, which is awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a wonderful marketing tactic. But their pictures are just, eh. Maybe the lighting isn't great. Maybe they don't put the time in to wait for that animal to get in a more appealing position. Maybe the background just doesn't work well. Maybe the color of their background clashes with the animal. Whatever the case may be, their pictures are just not that great. Maybe they're even like grainy, right? Or blurry. And then they're like, I just don't sell, man. Like, these breeders must just be selling on their reputation because my animals are just as good as theirs. Well, guess what? Your animals may be just as good as theirs, but your pictures are not. And for whatever reason, humans, as visual creatures, we are drawn to the best images, the best visuals, the best visual representation of the thing that we're going to buy. We love seeing things in person, right? Think about how much people love going to the zoo where you're not touching anything. You're not interacting with the animal, but we're there in person, seeing it right there in front of us. And we just love it, right? We go to aquariums, we go to a pet store, and we're just staring through the glass, right, at all the animals. I know a lot of you do this, right? It's not just me, but that's because we can see it. It's not even a photograph. It's right in front of us. And the best photographs are what we're drawn to when we can't see it in person, right? So that's all I'm saying for this video is just do not neglect your photos. If you're on Morph Market and you're listing animals and you're like, man, I have 30 animals to list, or I have 6 animals to list, or I have 300 animals to list, taking pictures takes forever. It's a pain. I'm not good at photography. I'm just going to blast through, get whatever pictures I can, and I'm going to put them up there. That's not good enough. I'm just telling you, if you aren't already a major breeder, that is not good enough. And even the major breeders know their sales will still be benefited by better pictures. Yes, they're now a major name. They're well known. People trust their brand. They're going to make sales based on that, of course. But even they know they need to take great pictures to boost their sales and their reputation, right? Their business that is now widely known is represented by the pictures that they post in large part. So I think it's very telling that the best pictures, and also I would say the best displays at expos, are usually the best breeders, because they know how important it is to be visually appealing, right? And of course, this is not just for the reptile world. I mean, obviously, my first example was a book, right? But since we're in the reptile hobby, let's represent it as magnificently as we can, and that means good pictures. I do not believe that you need a really expensive camera to take spectacular pictures. If you want to be, the best of the best of the best of the best, like a world-renowned photographer for your snakes or your lizards or your whatever, yes, you're going to need an expensive camera. But you can take excellent or even elite pictures with most of the smartphones on the market today. There's great cameras on most of these phones. Or if you're into just, a digital camera, you don't need one that's $10,000 with another $10,000 lens, right? You can get a good camera and take amazing pictures if you take the time. Watch a couple tutorials on YouTube of basic, simple things that can help you take good pictures. I promise you, it will make an enormous difference. Unless your social media is humongous, taking great pictures is going to boost your sales better than your social media. That has been my experience, and that has been the experience of everyone else in the hobby that I've talked to. And I see a lot of people that are willing to put in a huge amount of time to their social media, and they don't put any effort into their pictures, and their business suffers for it. And then they're just discouraged because their sales are so slow. So yeah, if you're selling online and advertising your animals online, take good pictures. I'll leave it with that thought, and I hope that this was useful. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, we're the Reptile Barn.